Thank you all for watching my program. I truly appreciate it. Please press the subscribe button. I really value everyone's support. Actually, I am recording this early in the morning. I am working on a few new reports about Nancy Guthrie, but in this episode, it is really very interesting. I am digging deeper into a few important questions. Who is the suspect in the Nancy Guthrie case? What are they thinking right now? How are they behaving more than 2 months after the kidnapping? And how could that behavior help people understand where to look and how to track them down? The scariest question is not what happened, but this in just 41 short minutes. How much could one person do if everything had already been planned? If this was only a normal time leaving the house, why do the physical signs outside not match? Why does the timeline sound so simple, but the closer you look, the more difficult gaps begin to appear? Sometimes the truth is not in what people say, but in what gets left out between the time mark and those 41 minutes. Could be the key that changes the entire story, turning a normal theory into a much bigger question that even now no one has been able to fully answer. Before we continue, one thing needs to be clear. This video is built from publicly available information and analysis for educational purposes, investigative thinking, and timeline comparison. It is absolutely not meant to accuse any individual or organization. The goal here is not to decide who is right or wrong, but to look at the small details that are often ignored, the gaps between statements and real-world data. Because sometimes, the thing that seems least important becomes the missing piece that changes the whole picture. And the deeper we go, the harder it becomes to ignore that question about the 41 minutes. The content in this video is for informational and reference purposes only. Although it has been cross-referenced with reputable sources, some details may have changed or may not be entirely accurate. Now, let us put emotions aside for a moment and look at the whole story in the simplest way possible, the timeline. No rumors, no rushed conclusions, just the order of what happened. Stage A, everything seemed completely normal. There were no warning signs and nothing unusual. Stage B, small breaks started appearing in the data. Very small, but enough to make people go back and check again. Then came Stage C, a signal loss window lasting exactly 41 minutes. Only 41 minutes, but it became the gap that changed the entire direction of the case. After that, nothing looked as simple as it seemed on the surface. So the question is, was this just a random technical error, or was it a silence created on purpose? Comment, error, or intentional? The debate then started moving in a completely different direction, the security system. Because when a monitoring system suddenly loses signal at the most sensitive moment, people usually think of only two possibilities. First, it could simply be a technical problem, weak internet, frozen equipment, power loss, or a small system error that caused everything to stop for a while. This can absolutely happen in normal life. But the second possibility makes people stop and think much longer. Was there something that caused the system to go blind exactly when it needed to see the most? No complicated terms, just think of it simply: when the signal disappears, the camera becomes like a pair of eyes forced shut. And during that time, anything that happens becomes much harder to verify. The real issue is not whether signal loss happened or not, but exactly when it happened and why the timing feels so perfectly matched. And here is the detail that made many people start changing their perspective. There are things at a scene that, if placed in the right position at the right time, can create a very important delay. That delay means even one small action can open a golden window for something else to happen behind it. If this theory is correct, then the story is no longer just random coincidence. It starts to look more like a sequence of actions with a clear order. In your opinion, was this an opportunity being used? Or a situation that had already been arranged in advance? But even when digital data can disappear, there is one thing that often gets much more attention from investigators: physical signs. Because cameras can lose signal, devices can disconnect, but what happened in the real physical space does not disappear that easily. In many professional investigations, people do not look at a scene with emotion. They look at every detail, like a frozen frame in a movie. The direction something appeared from, where an object was placed, how a mark spread, every small detail can tell part of a story that words alone cannot explain. And sometimes the most important thing is something very small. Why would someone leaving in a hurry still take time to neatly place an item that was not really necessary? Why would a familiar object be sitting in a place that does not match normal daily habits? I will not go into sensitive descriptions, because the goal here is to understand logic, not to create shock. Just remember one thing: Physical signs rarely appear naturally in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, and sometimes something looking too perfect is the most suspicious thing of all. At this point, I know many people may start feeling overwhelmed by too many details, so let us stop for 10 seconds and look at the full picture again, the timeline. Everything started from a completely normal stage, no clear warnings, no obvious danger signs, just what looked like an ordinary day. Then the data started showing small broken points. At first, they did not seem important, but the closer people looked, the more those gaps forced them to check again. Then came the most important part, 41 minutes of lost signal. Only 41 minutes, but placed at exactly the most sensitive moment in the entire story. And after that gap, the physical signs at the scene started raising bigger questions than any simple explanation could answer. If you separate each piece by itself, you could call it coincidence. But when you place them all on one timeline, every point, every silence, every unusual detail, it creates a very different feeling, as if an important part had been hidden. And that is why people need to clearly see that missing space. Because sometimes the truth is not in what appears, but in what suddenly disappears. And when the full timeline is placed on the table, the next question becomes almost impossible to avoid. If this was not just a random accident, then what was the motive? In many investigations, when a time gap appears at exactly the wrong moment, people usually look at three common motive groups: money, control, and silence. It could be financial pressure, personal gain, a relationship someone wanted to control, or a secret that was never supposed to come out. But to keep these ideas from becoming only guesses, investigators always return to the physical scene. Sometimes, it is not something big. It could be something very small, a key left in the wrong familiar place, an object arranged too neatly in a situation that should have been chaotic, or a small scratch in a place that does not fit the original story. Those simple details are what make the question heavier. And then there is something even more important: behavior after the event, especially after weeks or months. Some people become unusually silent and disappear from their normal routine. Others seem normal in a way that feels almost too smooth, speaking as if nothing ever happened. This is not a conclusion or an accusation. It is simply a common way behavior is analyzed. Because sometimes the most important question is not who did what, but who truly benefits the most when those 41 minutes become a blind spot that no one can see. But there is one thing that still stays with me the most, and maybe it is also the part many people cannot stop thinking about in this case. If those 41 minutes were truly a golden window, then the person involved, if that theory exists, did not need hours. They only needed a few minutes, as long as everything happened at the right time, in the right place, and in the right order. And that idea is more frightening than anything else, because it suggests this may not have been a sudden emotional reaction or chaos, but someone who clearly understood what they were doing, how long they needed, and which moment was safest to avoid attention. From that point of view, 41 minutes no longer feels like a random missing gap. It feels like a time frame that was used with precision. And that is why in the next episode, I will break down the three most important details even further: why the signal loss happened at exactly that sensitive moment, how delay really works as a concept, and how timelines in many cases are often redirected so people look in the wrong place from the very beginning. Maybe the answer is not in what everyone sees, but in what looks too small to notice. And now it is your turn. After everything we just walked through, the broken timeline, the 41 minutes of lost signal, the physical signs, and the question of motive, which direction do you lean toward more? Was this simply a random accident, a chain of unbelievable coincidences, or was it an intentional gap created on purpose? But do not just choose one word quickly. Comment error or intentional and add at least one reason based on what we just analyzed: the timeline, the 4-1 minute window, or the physical signs at the scene. Your perspective might open a completely different way of thinking. And if you want me to make part 2, comment part 2 with your choice: 1, detailed timeline; 2, signal loss; or 3, the mechanism of delay. Because sometimes the real answer is hidden inside one very small detail that everyone ignored. But the most haunting part is still this: if those 41 minutes were not random, then it was not just lost time, it was a gap calculated in advance. When the system loses signal at exactly the right moment, physical signs appear in exactly the right place, and the timeline keeps showing broken points, the question is no longer what happened. The question becomes what had already been prepared. In the next episode, we will break down the 3 most important links, because maybe what you are seeing right now is only the surface of the full truth.